I would like to offer a brief dive into the topics that we've chosen for our conference. Game changer and successive read are the two themes. So I looked into this in my own thinking, and I realized that there are some terms here that we're using that are very much part of our own dialogue, and I know that they mean things to everybody who's in the audience, but I thought it was important to talk about them in a shared view and see if we can understand a little bit more. I would offer that as human beings, we're wired to sense our environment and observe any changes and react to them. We do it constantly. We're wired that way a long time ago so we could survive. And although our modern civilization and the challenges and opportunities we face are a little different than they were some time ago, we haven't been modern long enough to evolve significantly. We still tend to react to changes with the same sensibilities. We can kind of imagine thousands of years ago our ancestors might be setting out to walk across a grassy plain, maybe in search for food. They would actively scan the scene, ever vigilant to notice anything unusual, identifying things that stay the same and identifying things that are changing. If a flock of birds suddenly took flight, light patterns would be received by our eyes, and they were compared to experiences stored in our memory and recognized as a signal of possible danger. In a fraction of a second, in their bodies, it would release an explosion of hormones. Experts call it the acute stress response. And unsure of what threat might be there, they would consider a range of possibilities, and the most ominous ones would fill their consciousness and stay there. They would be energized to be ready to either take on a fight or to run and remain in that state until there was sufficient evidence that things had cleared. We evolved to be aware of how the world around us works as a strategy for our survival. We're tuned to sense the dynamics of change we face in our lives as games to be played, and we understand that there are different stakes for the winners and losers. We understand that different players are in the games and that they play at different levels. We know that some of them play really well and some of them don't, and they lose quickly. And yet others learn to play the game well, and they can play the same game for a long, long time. But there's a few that think about the game from a different perspective. They question why the game exists in the first place, and they begin to imagine something different. They imagine and create new technologies, the stuff that humans make. And they work together with others to change the game. Game changer and successive read are two themes, and I expect everybody pretty much has an understanding of game changer, but successive read might be something new. I know it was for me, but I think with a little explanation, you might agree that it has some important factor or some important effect on the success of game changers and game-changing innovations. I was introduced to the concept of successive read as a student at ArtCenter. It's a term used to describe the way we perceive art and design in art and design circles. Artists are taught that the things that they create produce a first impression or a first read for the viewer. This followed by other impressions of the work, that's the second read, and so on as they continue to experience the work. Designers learn to vary these different factors they have control over, how bright things are, what the contrast is, the size, what the color is, to create an experience for the viewer that is evolving and has these successive reads. We can see a really good example of this concept in a painting that was done by a graduate from ArtCenter, illustrator Bev Doolittle. In this picture, what we notice first is a scene that's sort of a familiar scene. We see snow on the ground, a barren landscape with some bushes and some rocks. On second review, we start to see a little bit more. Maybe we recognize that the spots that are going down the middle of the snow patch have a particular shape, and we reference some memories that we have in our brain, and maybe realize that those are animal footprints. And then most people find the third read a little bit later. And over in the left, you might notice that there's something more in the bushes. And Bev Doolittle is playing a game with us that is playing on the way that we learned to perceive things a long time ago for our survival. This is another of Bev's paintings, and in each case, they engage us to use our past experiences to understand the view and then reveal more than we saw at first glance. As we start to understand the game, we learn to look for surprises to emerge in our images. We exercise an ancient genetic memory we all share. And we're driven to understand and gain control over what we have in front of us. And it feels satisfying, maybe even comforting, when we discover that what we didn't first observe. In 1970, British psychologist Richard Gregory observed that we actively construct our perception of reality based on past experiences and stored information. Otherwise, it's just light signals coming into our eyes. When we look at any scene, we sequentially take in pieces of sensory information and then make sense of it by referencing the things we've previously stored in our memory. But if there is something new in front of us, something we haven't seen before, sometimes we don't have the prior references to make sense of it. The ability to see the successive read in the pursuit of new business is one of the distinguishing characteristics of a successful game changer. Successful innovators often tell a story of setting out on a path and then running into unforeseen changes and opportunities that simply were not visible on the first, second, or third read. And innovation pursuits that fail often tell a story of starting down a path based on a first read, but failing to see the second, third, and the fourth as they're revealed. Game changers have the ability to keep their eyes and their minds open to read something new in a familiar scene. They have the ability to add a second and third read to the first one, and they're motivated to make changes in the plan to fit their deeper understanding of the revealed scene. Most of us are probably familiar with the term game changer, a company that alters its business strategy and conceives an entirely new business plan, or maybe even invents a new market. We also use the term to describe the individual involved, or individuals, a person who's visionary. A game changer changes the way that something's done, the way it's made, or the way it's thought about. Many people have tried to identify the traits that game changers have in common, and most people will agree that not everyone is cut out to be a game changer. But we like to make lists of the different traits that are there. I would offer it's another way we like to have control over the world that we're in, and I think we also kind of want to secretly find out if we might be a game changer. These are some of the traits that are frequently identified. Awareness and sensitivity to others. A unique ability to see problems, needs, and opportunities. The ability to imagine many possibilities, and then the ability to choose and create actionable solutions. They tend to be obsessed and tenacious. This is one that repeats over and over again. Innovators are people who won't let go, and they'll keep pursuing their quest. They have ability to see a greater purpose, and they're unapologetic about being seen as different or different in the way that they think. They're completely indifferent to whether they're popular, and they're resilient to criticism. They make compelling leaders because they have an infectious passion for the things that they believe in. And these are the two that I would say I'm kind of customizing or adding to the list based on this little delve into game changing and what that's really about. With Successive Read, it's obvious to me that innovators are forever curious, and they're always looking for understanding the underlying why. They have the ability to see things with beginner's eyes because they can turn off the preconditioned memories that they have as well, and that's a unique trait. They also have the ability to perceive the successive read in an innovation context and change course to get to the better target that has been revealed. Thank you so much.